Bose had been the industry leader in the noise-cancelling headphone market for what seemed like decades. Sony stepped in a few years later to claim that very title. This is their latest and possibly greatest set of noise-cancelling headphones. Hi guys, I'm Paul and welcome to another review. If you like what I'm doing on my channel, feel free to like and share, subscribe if you haven't already. The small things really do help the channel, and I would like to thank my wife today for gifting me these as an early birthday gift. So I'm transitioning to these from my older Bose QC35s, and I've had those for quite a long time and I recently did review them. I'm curious to see if switching between these two is like switching between Apple to Android. But that's a video I'll leave for another time. Today I'm focusing on the XM4s and it's going to be a long one. So if you don't have the time to watch the whole video, I have left chapters down below so you can skip to whichever parts you'd like to watch. These do come in a very neat box which does give you a premium feel while you're unboxing it. You get the usual literature, a carrying case, an in-flight adapter which has this label on it. Every label tells a story, I guess. A USB-C cable for charging, and of course the headphones themselves. The case's zip has a similar color as the accents on the headphones, which is a neat touch. The fabric case feels tough enough to protect your headphones in any backpack unless you're transporting blades of some kind. The layout of the case is a bit odd because you can't customize it. It's got its dedicated slots for the USB cable, auxiliary cable, and the in-flight adapter. The headphones can only slot in a specific orientation, which I find slightly inconvenient. Let me explain. When you take the headphones off of your head, the ear cups do not turn outwards away from you. So you have to flip them around, tuck it in, then it fits into the case. And you have to do the opposite while putting them on as well. That's a bit odd. The overall build of these is quite good though. The surface of the headphones feels slightly rubbery and looks like it may pick up soft scratches. But from the other reviews I've seen about these, that's not been the case. The tactile buttons on these also have a nice feel but don't respond as quickly as I'd like them to. Press and hold to power on. Press and hold to power off.
Power off.
If you need to expand these to fit your cranium, they slot into place with clicks, but there is no visible indentation on the headband, which is quite cool. And another thing about it is the way the band looks upon reveal. It's got a charcoal color brushed metal look, which looks quite gorgeous when it catches light. Sony should consider making XM4s with this finish. Speaking about new finishes for the XM4, they just announced a new finish they call Silent White, where the top layer of these headphones has a pearlescent finish to it. The accessories will also be matched to the headphones, from cables to the case, for a seamless look. This launch happens to coincide with Sony's 75th anniversary this year in May, and this review happens to have gone live on that very day 75 years later. I don't expect any of these to be on sale in India as they're being sold as a limited series and they're primarily selling them in Europe and the US. The clamping force of these is also quite comfortable. It's very well balanced between headband and ear pads. I have not felt any strain over longer listening sessions as well. The build of this band is also quite good. They're quite flexible. I don't hear any creaking, any clacking with the plastic. It may happen over time, but straight out of the box and using them for a few weeks, it's in good condition. The ear pads are extremely soft thanks to their memory foam cushions and are super comfortable. The only issue being that they don't breathe since they are sealed so well. Not ideal for warmer climates but perfect for the office environments with AC. The only concern I have for them is when they do wear out, where do we get replacement pads from? I don't see any available online, but you can pick up a genuine pair from any Sony service center. Apart from noise cancelling, these have a lot of science crammed into them. To begin with, the setup is an experience by itself. You can set these up with the Headphones Connect app from Sony, which asks you if it can analyze your ears. It does this with photos of your ears, so it can give you a bespoke 360 audio experience. The 360 audio is an interesting way to listen to your music, but it's available only on a few platforms like nugs.net and Artist Connection. No doubt there's a lot of effort that's gone into this method of recording and mixing audio. But I couldn't help but be reminded of Dr. Chesky's binaural recordings from many years ago. Give that a listen if you haven't already. When you go into the headphones app, you get a better sense of what these are capable of. They've got adaptive sound control which tries to assess your location and your activity to adjust the levels of noise bleed in for your safety. You can set different levels of ambient sound bleed in depending on whether you're seated, walking, running, or traveling. It's got a speak to chat feature which can be a bit funny at times because the headphones pause your music every time you speak. So if you decide to sing along with your music or even clear your throat while reading a book, the music pauses for a certain amount of time which you can decide on. But I had to put this off but Sony did think past that, and there is another option for you to speak to other people if you want to. You can just put your hand over the right cup and it drops the audio levels to a certain extent where you can converse with somebody next to you. It also has a noise cancelling optimizer which keeps a check on atmospheric pressure. So if you've ever used older noise cancelling headphones that make you feel like there's a suction going on in your ear, this makes sure you don't have that. They've got NFC for quick pairing, LDAC support, DSEE Extreme, which is an upscaler for lower resolution audio, and it does do a pretty good job at it, I must say. It has the QN1 chip for noise cancelling processing, which is carried over from the previous generation XM3. It has a proximity sensor in the left ear cup that helps auto pause and play your music when you take it off. The touch controls to begin with I found a bit weird, specifically the volume controls, because every time you swipe up, the volume goes up with very small increments, which can be quite frustrating. Thankfully, however, you can swipe up and hold to let the volume keep rising or falling. That's a neat feature. I was a bit surprised to find that these do not connect to the PS4 natively. One would think that the PS4 would sync up quite naturally to the XM4, but it seems Sony hasn't quite listened to a number of requests to do this. No doubt you can plug your auxiliary cable into your remote, but then you're bypassing all the good hardware in these that make them the great headphones that they are. Gaming with these natively would be an amazing experience, and if games also introduced 360 audio. The active noise cancelling has multiple levels of control, from 0 to 20. 0 being the least amount of noise coming in and 20 being the maximum.
Noise cancelling. Ambient sound. Ambient sound. Ambient sound control off. Noise cancelling.
When it comes to call clarity, you can be the best judge when it comes to that. Hi guys, I'm calling from the XM4 and I'm standing next to what usually is a very busy street, but we're in the middle of lockdown where I am right now, so there isn't as much activity here. So this does give you a general idea of the noise around me. Because I'm showcasing that from the microphone and the camera, I will be shifting over to the mic in the XM4 about now, so that you know how your recipient will be hearing you over those phone calls. I'm sure the same program that governs the noise cancelling also governs the environmental noise cancelling for these phone calls. And the best judge of this would be you guys, because this is how it's going to sound for them. And I'll see you guys back at the studio. It's difficult to complain about the battery life when a full charge can carry you for more than a day on Earth or even Mars. On a volume front, the audio output is balanced quite well on these, from the lowest to the fullest volume. There's no real loss below 50%. 50% happens to be a very appropriate listening volume. It's not too loud or too soft and does sound fun. You could always crank it up to 70% or higher, but it gets really loud here. So you might want to stay away from those volumes to protect your ears. Soundstage is quite impressive on these. These might have the best stage I've heard on close-back headphones. I'm sure the tech they've used for their 360 audio has contributed towards giving these that special experience. There are flutters of instruments that come at you from a little out of the headphones, and these do create an illusion of forming a sphere of music around your head, especially when you feed them with high-res audio that's well recorded. Some audio does present itself in a vertical stage, while the rest comes at you from a horizontal plane. It is impressive for closed-back headphones. Imaging is almost pin sharp and makes me want to plug these into my hi-fi setup just to see if they improve a bit. It's quite easy to pull certain nuances out of these if you're trying to enjoy tracks with harmonies or if there are swells with many instruments. It looks as though Sony's 360 audio project has in fact contributed to how well these image as well. Speaking about 360, if you get the app Artist Connection, there's a track by Zara Larsson where Sony is showcasing their 360 audio. It's worthwhile trying it out even if you don't have Sony headphones. I think you can demo this song on YouTube, so I'll link it down below. But the audio is not as crisp as the Artist Connection app. High frequencies are crisp and come at you with a lot of enthusiasm, but in a very relaxed and friendly manner. These won't hurt your ears over longer listening sessions, which is great. There were certain tones I heard while listening to Neil Young's Harvest Moon on these that I haven't heard on other closed backs before. Considering it's an older recording, I wasn't expecting much information to be extracted from it, but I enjoyed listening to his music after quite a while. Sibilances aren't something I've heard on these at all, which is quite a feat, I'd say. Mid-frequencies sound like they're slightly recessed, but they are presented very well against the other frequencies. It's not aggressive and in your face, but placed rather well, creating a mutual balance between it and the highs and lows. Listening to Zac Brown Band's Colder Weather, you realize that male vocals sound warm and rounded and not nasal like some headphones are tuned. Listening to Stevie Nicks perform Dreams showcases how well these do with female vocals as well. From the main vocals to the backup vocals, everything sounds silky smooth and remains quite enjoyable. If a vocalist has a slight huskiness to their voice, it's not lost with these. These give a slight airiness to vocals which helps give a natural tone to them. Low frequencies from EDM and house music hit different. There is a slight accentuation in the lower frequencies which doesn't really sit with my palate, or at least it didn't to begin with. Listening to Miami to Ibiza by Swedish House Mafia many years later did put a smile on my face. Considering how Blinding Lights by The Weeknd starts off, I thought it would drown out the mids quite a bit, but it doesn't really affect it much. The mids and bass have good separation and don't intrude on one another. The way this hits sub-low frequencies, it makes these really fun to listen to. Those sub-frequencies contribute to some spectacle-shaking bass when watching any action scenes in movies, which does make them so much more enjoyable. On a side note, I did watch Zack Snyder's Justice League on this, purely because I couldn't watch it on my home theater system because the baby had to sleep. But these did throw dialogue and music at me with polished articulation. Audio can make or break any visual, and these haven't fallen apart with anything I've thrown at them. So I decided to plug these into my hi-fi setup to see if the imaging improved and if there was more clarity to these. Because let's be honest, Bluetooth is a bottleneck. I fed these some FLAC files that play at 2 to 5 Mbps, which is a little more than what LDAC pushes through these headphones. Listening to Mozart's Lacrimosa Requiem in D minor is one of my high-res go-to tracks, and it's quite obvious that the highs get tighter and sharper, the mids get more presence, and the bass gets a little more definition and body, and the imaging gets razor sharp. Everything coming out of these becomes more focused and the headphones suddenly become a lot more serious. I'd love to listen to a set of Sony open backs with these drivers. The one thing I did find a bit odd when plugging in the auxiliary cable was that phantom channel and a few other tones, which are usually dead center, move slightly over to the right. It's almost as if the headphones have gotten a little tired and have leaned over to the right side. I think this could be due to the construct of the ear cups. The left ear cup is a bit different to the right due to having that proximity sensor. Over Bluetooth, this is no issue at all because I'm sure there's a certain amount of DSP that's working to correct those slight imbalances. Having said that, I would still prefer to use these wired rather than wireless when travel opens up, purely because there is a significant upgrade in audio provided you have a high-res source. Is there an audio delay with these? I'm sure a lot of gamers would want to know about that, but I can't test that because I don't really game on my phone. One way I can actually check this out is if I edit with these in wireless mode. A big reason why I don't edit with Bluetooth headphones is because there usually is that slight delay and your audio ends up looking like this. It's much better to edit with speakers or a wired headphone connection. So if I'm being really honest about this, I didn't use the Bluetooth much because I found that my intro was getting thrown off, certain things that I wanted to sync, it just wasn't working. So I eventually ended up using the cable through my amp for this, or just using the speakers. Now, this isn't ideal for gamers because you want practically instantaneous sound coming from your games. Having said that though, for movies it isn't so noticeable. It's very slightly off if you really focus on it, but movies are still fun to watch on these. But considering everything, would I still recommend these? You know what? Yes, they're fun sounding headphones and they come packed with tech and they work almost flawlessly. Sure, they have a few issues here and there, but if I'm being honest, I'm just splitting hairs. The way they sound trumps any issue they have. I think a lot of people would really like it if Sony made these natively compatible with the PS4. That would be the icing on the cake. In addition to all the features I mentioned, the app also has an inbuilt EQ which you can customize to the sound profile that you prefer. Sony has these marked at an MRP of 29,990 rupees here in India. If you do want a better deal, you'll have to look out on Amazon for one of those sales that they usually have. So some of you must be wondering, should you go for the XM3 or should you go for the XM4? The XM3 is only available as long as stocks last from certain sellers. The XM4 on the other hand is the latest from Sony and it is still being manufactured. The XM4 would be my choosing purely because it has got a few more features that are considerably better than the XM3. For one, the XM4 comes with a proximity sensor, so it pauses and plays your music every time you take your headphones off and put them back onto your head. And secondly, the XM4 lets you connect to two devices simultaneously. So you can be listening to music off your computer and you can answer a phone call if it rings. I find that super convenient. So considering what you get for the price, I'd say the XM4 is really value for money and it's very difficult to dislike. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already, click that bell icon for future notifications, and thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice. Is it recording? You have to tell me, you know? Fuck, seriously.
What do you think I'm standing here to do?
Miss Bob. Don't do drama, fucking sit your ass down.
Director of photography.